first of all, Bill Curry came to Alabama under tiring circumstances, and I think he did a terrific job. He was a close friend. I didn't know him before he got there. He was a close friend when he left. Carolyn and his family are great people. They won a lot more games than people want to give them credit for. It was a tiring time, but he stood up. He stood up against it, and he was a friend then. He's a friend today. So I'm tickled that Bill is able to be back on our show today. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing, guys?
We're good.
Doing okay.
Great to be with you, Wimp. I miss you. It took me a while before I could do. I actually miss Wimp Sanderson. Yes, I do. That rascal, you were the best friend I had in Tuscaloosa, and greatly appreciated.
I don't hear that much, Coach Curry. People saying that. Nah, I'm just kidding. He's one of the most misunderstood guys in America, isn't he, Coach Curry?
That's right. You got to listen carefully if you want to understand Wimp Sanderson. Then you have to ask him a couple of questions. But that's what we did, and Wimp showed up the first day at the press conference. I'll never forget that. And he showed up at all the tough times, and I'll never forget those either. So the best thing about Alabama was the students and the student athletes, but the second best was the guys, the folks on the staff, like Wimp. But Wimp was the leader of the ones who were supportive of us and helped us to do whatever we did get done.
Well, I know that you continued to coach. Tell us what you're doing, what you'd like to do. I think you're in North Carolina now. Is that right?
Well, actually, we've been in North Carolina since 1997, but we just sold our house. It was a mountain house that we loved and had a great view, and it was cool, 3,000 feet up. But we've got 7 grandchildren now, and we had to sell it because we could never get there. We always have a recital or a swim meet or a football game to go to for our grandchildren, and my wife Carolyn has written a great book which has gotten all kind of acclaim, so she's running around the country speaking. Right. I still have an opportunity to speak about leadership and building relationships and huddles with businesses, and so we've just been a lot busier than we thought we'd be. So we sold that, and we live in a condominium in Atlanta now.
Okay, well, good. You're closer to Birmingham. Talk a little bit about maybe some of the great games at Alabama, some of the games that really that you recall most of all.
Well, unfortunately, if you're a competitor, you tend to remember the ones that you didn't win.
Yeah, I understand.
More than the ones that you did. And we needed to beat Auburn in the worst way. Could have, had we played the way we were supposed to, and had I not made a bonehead call on a fake field goal. Those things kind of haunt you. So I have to confess to you that I remember that, and I wish we had gotten that done. It would have been a fitting end to a great season. Yeah. But I think the one that stands out the most from the positive standpoint is probably at Ole Miss in Jackson in '89. We had lost to Ole Miss in homecoming the year before, and that was something that had never happened to Alabama. It was inexcusable. And we look up at the scoreboard after 5 minutes that we're gone in the game in '89, and it was 21-0, Ole Miss. And it was such a shocking thing. I went up and down the sidelines and just looked into people's eyes, and nobody had any panic. Nobody was yelling, jumping up and down, or flipping out, or crying, or any of those stupid things that football players do. There was just a look of resolve. And we began to get our act together, and by the half, I believe the score was 47-21, and our guys just took over the game, and it was a great thing to see that we realized that then we had a special team.
Yeah, great. Larry?
We're talking with Coach Bill Curry. Coach, I want to ask you about Nick Saban. Has he changed the game of football and maybe the way guys are paid now? I mean, some of the things they did for Coach, he's made it work. Guys are making more money than they've ever made. It's almost kind of like what Tiger Woods did for golf. Now these guys are making so much, he maybe paid the way with Jack Nicklaus and those guys. But just kind of talk about what you've seen and the impact Nick Saban's had on football and for coaches.
Well, Nick has had a huge impact on football, I can tell you that. Whether he has personally affected the wage scale, I had never thought about that, but since you bring it up, he probably has. My initial response is he probably has, because he has done such a great job. He is such a great coach that people look around and think, well, what do we got to do to get one of those? And maybe if we pay somebody, he'll grow into a Saban. That's not likely.
No.
There's only one of those. I had the privilege of being an analyst for ESPN for 11 years. In my first couple of years, I was assigned to the Big Ten. And there was a young head coach at Michigan State, and I watched him go up and down the sideline, get in the face of each of his players, and I said on the air, this guy's team is going to win this game. They probably shouldn't, but they're going to win this game, and it's going to be because of the will of the head coach, and this guy's going to be a great head coach. So you didn't have to be smart to see that. So he's had it in him the whole time, and I think he's impacted everything about the college game, the way people coach, the way they do the special teams, the way they deploy their defenses, the way they nurture their staff. And frankly, another effect that Nick has had is he's enlarged the opportunities for people to work in athletic departments. He's got a big staff, and he uses it well. People have criticized that, but it's hard to argue with the kind of success they've had.
Yep, Dad.
The Southeastern Conference, I think maybe last year maybe it wasn't quite as good. It may not. I guess it'll be better this year. We got better quarterbacks, but it has been one of the premier conferences in the league. I know in the country. I know when you were at Georgia Tech, it was quite different. Talk a little bit about the way that college football has progressed offensively and on the defensive side as well, and a little bit about the Southeastern Conference now.
Wow, that would take a long answer, and I can't answer that quickly. There's been such.
But it's gotten good. It's gotten good because Alabama may have been the one that brought it up some, but Alabama's been up and down as well. But I think the SEC has been able to do the job recruiting maybe a little bit better than some of the others, although the Big Ten's good. But certainly the playoff system is very valuable to the SEC.
It really is, and there are a lot of things about the playoff system I do not like. We don't have enough players. I mean, the wear and tear on the human body in the sport of football is mind-boggling. And to have 85 scholarships and now play in 15 games, I mean, that's like an NFL season. The NFL just crushes your body. And these are college kids. They're supposed to be going to class, and they do at most places, and they graduate at most places. That's another thing Nick's done a good job with is the academics and the APR at Alabama. But I think what's happened is we now have essentially another professional league in the minds of the public. And we're still playing with 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds, and they are still trying to mature, trying to figure things out. And they make mistakes. And then when they do, they get riddled by the media, and for some of them, it's going to last the rest of their life. What they don't realize is social media, you say one dumb thing, and it's out there forever. It wasn't like that when we were coming along. We got away with things because nobody remembered them. Now, you got to be careful everything you do because you're so scrutinized. So I think everything about the whole deal has changed. And then you got the whole controversy about concussions and brain damage and helmets and rule changes to keep your head up and tackle with your shoulder and all those things that are going on. It's just a state of constant transition. I think it's tough for the student athletes. I really do. But a lot of them are doing it well, and my hat's off to them.
Tell our listeners how and how Vince Lombardi was different.
He was different in every way. His best attribute, and he does not get credit for this, it's in the books. Jerry Kramer wrote a great book, and George Plimpton has written books, and different people have done books on Coach Lombardi. and it's mentioned, but it's never been emphasized to the point that it should be, and it was the fact that he would not tolerate racism. In the 60s, a lot of NFL teams had quotas, and they would only have one or two African-American players, or none, and they would brag about it. If you said one racist word in Vince Lombardi's training camp, you were on the next Greyhound going home. And the guys knew he wouldn't tolerate racism. We had a lot more African-American players, and by the way, their names were Billy Wood, Herb Adderley, Willie Davis, Dave Robinson. Those guys all got one thing in common. They're in the Hall of Fame. We had a bunch of Hall of Famers playing, and Coach Lombardi had that sense of, yes, he was brutal, tough, demanding, but he felt like every human being should be given the same opportunity. And everybody on the team knew that. And that's why nobody could beat us. And then I got traded away, and then had the privilege of playing against him. So it was quite a time, and he was unique in the history of the game. He was not an easy man, and he and I had our differences, but it ended up with me going to see him in the hospital when he was dying, and I had to apologize to him for some things, and he taught me a great deal about life.
We're talking with Coach Bill Curry. Coach, this Ole Miss situation, I think coaches respect each other. I don't think fans respect each other as far as the Alabama fan and maybe the Auburn fan or Ole Miss, Mississippi State, but we have this call-in show here, and we have guests on it, and I hear people say, well, Dan Mullen is ecstatic about what's going on over at Ole Miss right now. It's going to give him an advantage in recruiting, or these other schools are. I personally don't believe that, and I want to get you to comment. I think a coach knows how hard it is to be a coach and how much your life is scrutinized. I think these guys feel for guys like that, where a fan base maybe can't understand that. I want to get your take on something like that.
Well, now I start to sound like a beat-up old jock, which is exactly what I am. But if you haven't worked 100 hours a week to try to get 100 teenage males to do the right thing 24/7, and you're responsible for them 365 days a year, if you haven't done that, then you don't understand coaching.
Mm-hmm.
The games, getting ready for the games and playing the games, that's the fun part. The rest of it is extremely difficult. And you're right. Most coaches have a lot of empathy for their fellow coaches. And there are a lot of good friendships that are formed at conventions, and guys take vacations together and end up buying homes in areas. So when they retire, they end up living in the same neighborhoods. I mean, there's a lot of that goes on that people don't know about. So, or like my friendship with you, Wimp. I mean, we went through some tough things, both of us, and that never goes away. So most of the guys really do care about the other guys and do not rejoice when bad things happen.
Yeah, Dad.
Bill, tell us how people could get a hold of you. I don't know what's the best way to ask this, whether it be by mail or phone or something, for speaking engagements.
The easiest way is to simply email me, and I've got a company that handles it for me. But if they would just email me personally, then I can respond to them and put them in touch with the people who handle my speaking engagements. My email is the reason I use this is because it's so easy to remember. It's just bill@billcurry.net.
Bill@billcurry.net. Okay.
At bill@billcurry.net.
All right, that's pretty easy. All right, Coach, before I let you go, give me one good Wimp Sanderson story, listener, something maybe that.
Golly, I got so many. It's hard to pick one. Okay, some of them I can't tell on the
understand.
Air. But the one that I think I enjoyed the most was we had a Wimp Sanderson lookalike contest.
Ooh.
And I can't remember whether I won it or not, but I showed up at the basketball game to be in the Wimp Sanderson lookalike contest. And Wimp comes running up to me and said, "You got my sport coat on, those awful plaid sport coats that he used to wear." And he said, "That looks like one of mine." I said, "It is." He said, "How'd you get it?" He said, I went to your house and I knocked on the door and I went in, I got it out of your closet and I got it now." He was terribly offended.
You should have won if you had the authentic jacket on. You should have won.
I think I won, but I might be making that up.
Well, I'll email you. You could email me back the stories that we couldn't tell on the air.
I'm not putting them on email.
Yeah, don't do that either.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. Tell Caroline I said hey.
I sure will. You give my love to all